Hi, I'm Thomas Russo, and I'm going to talk about Warren Buffett and how he made his fortune. I chose this topic because, as we all did, I chose 10 topics, and my potential topics included business-related topics and some history-related topics and some random things that I was just interested in. But judging from the analysis of our class, I noticed that our class had a good amount of business majors, so I eliminated all the rest and I decided to go with a topic relating to business. So of these I had arbitrage, the stock market, Warren Buffett, and how to close a deal. And based on the feedback from the class, the group discussion boards, I decided to go with Warren Buffett because it seemed like everyone would be of interest, and especially with the business majors that we have, we can all relate to it. The thesis statement of this speech is that Warren Buffett made his billions not by thinking of complex business strategies with lots of moving parts, but by focusing on the simple things, the simple aspects of business, and focusing on them until he had mastered them and could perform them better than anyone else. When I say basic business practices, I mean he invested. Warren Buffett wasn't creating new products or even creating new companies, but he was able to predict whether a company was going to succeed or not, and so he invested in those companies, and that's how he made his fortune. He now owns 64 companies that are well known, like Geico, for example, Dairy Queen, Kraft, and Heinz. These are just a few of them. And he owns these according to Berkshire Hathaway Incorporated, which is his main company that all these 64 companies are included under. And he did all this just by investing at the right time, not by necessarily innovation, but just by knowing when to invest. He now has $87 billion and he's 88 years old, but he began trading stocks when he was only 11. And by the time he was 16, he had made what would be equal to $53,000 of today's money, according to Business Insider. And this, when I say that he made his money by mastering the simple things, and this is a perfect example of it. Stock market is one of the most simple, or not simple, but one of the most basic concepts of business, and it proves that you can be successful by focusing on the basics and doing them better than anyone else. It's not as easy as it sounds, though, because if you are to be successful by just focusing on the basics, you would have to practice your whole life, like Warren Buffett had since he was 11. But now that he had practiced his whole life and mastered it, he didn't need to create new products or anything. He just invested, and he could invest better than anyone else. A good example of how he would invest is when he bought back shares that he previously sold to stockholders in 2018. And Scott English, who studies Warren Buffett, wrote an article in the Evening Standard about this share buyback. He explains why Buffett bought back the shares. His reasoning was that he foresaw his company having a record year in financially, and so he bought back as many shares as he could from the stockholders, and the stockholders received a decent amount of money. But if they had held on to them, those stocks would have been worth a lot more because of the growth that Warren Buffett predicted. But instead, Warren Buffett owns those shares again. They went up in price, and then his shares were worth a lot more. And this is just a perfect example of how he mastered the basics. It's knowing that your shares are going to go up in value and wanting to buy more before that happens is one of the most basic concepts in investing. Anyone could understand that, but Warren Buffett understood it better than anyone else. Because if all those shareholders had known what was going to happen, they wouldn't have sold him back his shares. And it's just an example that he focuses on simple things like that, but he just understands them better than anyone else. And that's really what sets him apart as a businessman. And so, in conclusion, Warren Buffett is the world's greatest investor, and he sets himself apart, again, because he doesn't see a need for complicated plans with lots of moving parts, but he just focuses on the basic investing principles enough that no one can invest as well as him. And it has proved to be so successful that he's able to donate $2 billion every year. And that's according to Understanding Business. And to get into perspective just how wealthy he is from investing, you can look at the graph in the bottom left corner. It shows Warren Buffett's net worth and how long it took him to get to that point. And you can see the first two amounts that are listed are 6,000 and 7 million. So think about the difference between 6,000 and 7 million. That's a huge difference. But if you look at the graph, there doesn't seem to be a change at all. It looks like a straight line. Because compared to Buffett's total net worth now, on the right side of the graph, 7 million doesn't make a very big difference. And so it looks like there's almost no change, even though he made $7 million in that time. And this was just by focusing on basic principles of business and doing them better than anyone else.